Why, hello there. Come, sit down, get out of the bad weather, and join us for another rainy day reading. I'm here with returning guest, Joe Stratman. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I have a surprise kitty in my apartment, but it's a good surprise, but we need to find the owner.
That sounds like the best surprise ever. Also, if there's a random hard edit, that's why. And we also have an off-site guest, Yerocha. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. I also have a cat, but mine is a plush toy with a fish for a face.
Yeah, I remember making that tweet that it was a fucking catfish. Yeah. We all got it.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I was just waiting for it to end.
Okay, so...
Okay. Let me get back on track. And today we'll be discussing a quite old historical manga. I think this is from the 1960s?
1962.
I believe. 1962. That makes it the oldest series we're covering, because People of the Desert by Hayao Miyazaki was only 1969. So this is the oldest series we've covered. And, this is a fucking wordful of a name. The series we're talking about is Kidaruma Kenpo Onorera ne Suku, translated as Bloody Daruma Swordsmanship. Heed my words.
I'm just going to call it Heed My Words.
And I'm just gonna.
That's definitely sounds.
And I'm just gonna call it Chidaruma because I want to. I might call it Heed My Words later on, but I'll stick with Chidaruma for now.
Yours is way more. Yours is way more adorable, considering this is a terribly bloody and horrific series, Yerocha.
Yes, but when the title itself says Daruma Soldier, like, you kind of have to emphasize that a little bit.
Very true. But before we get into that, of course, we need to ask the all-important question that we ask everyone here on this show. And we're going to start with you, Yerocha, because you're the off-site guest here. What have you been reading lately?
Recently there's a couple different series I started reading. One in print form and the other in on manga reader sites and stuff. And both are kind of interesting that I'm reading them both at the same time. One of them is a little series I heard about a long time ago, but never actually read. It's called Bobobo-bo.
Yes.
I watched that anime. That was the worst anime ever.
Yeah.
No, don't feel discouraged. Talk about it.
It's okay. I wasn't exactly going to be like, this is the best thing ever. Oh my god. It's not that kind of series for sure. I'm not sure how to quite describe the plot of this series, other than it starts off with a parody of Fist of the North Star, with a main character with a blonde afro who fights with his nose hair, and at one point his armpit hair. And other characters range from a talking pickle to... How do you even describe Don Patch? What exactly is he? Is he a talking orange? I think at one point they compare him to a talking orange.
Oh, that's the little orange fucking ball guy with, like, the spike hair, right?
That's the one.
I have no idea how to describe that guy. Like, I was thinking, like, who is that? Because, mind you, I say I saw the anime. This was back when I was, like, in fucking middle school. I saw this.
Wow.
So I was, like, thinking, like, who is that? And then, yeah, no, I have no idea how to describe that guy.
Right, but as far as the plot goes, that's about as much sense as I can make out of it. Even if I were to have read a chapter like 5 minutes ago, I wouldn't be able to tell you what happened in it, because the story is just so random, and from what I can understand, it's filled with pop culture references from Japan that only they would understand. And part of me is bewildered how this series managed to last for 200 chapters, and yet I still can't stop reading it, because it's one of those series that's just stupid and weird in its own unique way, and you just know that you have to experience it for yourself sometimes. That's sort of my take on it. And the other one, it's more logical, but it might actually be even dumber in some respects. I started reading Dr.Slump recently.
Oh, that's the Akira Toriyama comedy, right?
Yeah, that one. I I ended up reading both of these because I recently played J-Star's Victory Versus, and I wanted to see what a bunch of these series were like. Somehow, playing through all of J-Stars, I didn't realize that the main character, Ariel, I don't know how to pronounce the title, but at one point in the manga, they say it sounds like Ariel, like the word Ariel. But I only found out as soon as I started reading that she is a robot, and very obviously a robot. Like, she can take off her own head. She's kind of like Bender in like what she can do sometimes. But yeah, the story follows her adventures and the strange inventions her creator, the titular Dr.Slump, comes up with. I'm not sure where that name comes from because that's not his name. He's just Dr. Slump sometimes. But yeah, I say the series is almost dumber because it's actually somewhat comprehensible, and so you can actually look at the pages and like I can see you can fully comprehend just how dumb the series is in that respect. Whereas with Bobobo, it's like a lot of it is like so above comprehension that it wraps around and becomes like sane again.
Okay, well that does sound interesting. I'll be honest, I don't find a lot of the gag manga very funny or interesting at this point, so I don't look into them. But I think both of those series I will have to at least give a try to. One, because I have nostalgic value with not liking in the first place, and I need to see how bad it got. And the Akira Toriyama one, just because it's Akira Toriyama, you gotta know what he did before Dragon Ball.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating knowing that he's actually much more of a comedy writer than he is an action writer. And that's almost...
Yeah! No, you're absolutely right, because didn't he do another series before Dr. Slump, or am I thinking of something else?
No, he definitely did another series. I'm not sure if it was a full-length series or a one-shot. I remember him writing something called Sandland.
That was done after Dragon Ball Z. I think that actually came up as a result of... Well, I know it was released at the same time, I think, stateside, and... Like, the first chapters came out stateside in Japan, like, at the same time. Because that was when the first chapters of the print Shonen Jump here in the US started.
Alright.
Like, that was like... Yeah, it was like a new Akira Toriyama from the creator of Dragon Ball Z, like, started running. It was like a big promotion to sell the comic. And it worked for a while.
But yeah, I'll have to look into that further, because... Like, that is an interesting discussion point, like, just how much of his titular style comes from the fact that he's more into comedy than to action, like, compared to all the other shonen writers nowadays.
Yeah, very true. Alright then, Joe, you said you didn't have something you read, but you had an interesting story you wanted to tell, so please, go ahead.
Yeah, it's been a stressful weekend for personal reasons, but... I went to Goodwill, just randomly going about town and stuff, and I went to their, like, record section, and not only did they have records, they had laser discs. And there was 5 episodes of a series called Moldiver on Laserdisc, and they were $1 a piece, so I now have 5 discs, an episode a piece of Moldiver, a series I know nothing about, on Laserdisc, a medium I do not have anything to play. So...
Fill time for like 1 minute. I'm gonna look up Moldiver.
Okay.
Alright. I would say that's dumb, but I probably would have done the same thing in your place.
Found it! Alright, let's see. This is the synopsis for what you bought, even though you apparently didn't know. Hiroshi Ozora invents the Mold Unit, a device that makes its user invincible. His plan of becoming a superhero are short-lived, however, when his sister, Miraya, accidentally modifies the suit configuration. Now she is forced to save Tokyo by herself from the evil Machinengel, I don't even know how to say that, and his gang of all-female androids.
Of course they're all female.
Surprisingly enough, Ecchi is not listed as one of the genres, which I'm very surprised.
But I'm looking at the voice...
But you said you own 5 episodes?
Yeah, each...
You got fucking gypped because it's a 6-episode OVA. You're missing one.
I know. I'm missing the first episode because they didn't have...
Are you... Oh, that's the worst one to miss.
But they were $1 a piece, and each Laserdisc has one episode, even though these were the precursors to DVDs, so they could hold full movies, they could hold commentary tracks, they could hold deleted scenes. But, you know, Japan. Japan's gonna Japan, so they just have one episode a piece. I can't imagine how expensive these were in 1993 and whenever it came out in the US. I'm looking at the voice talent here, and it's apparently we have Steve Bloom and David Hayter. And
David Hayter?
David Hayter.
Explain for the peanut gallery, because I don't know voice actors.
Steve Bloom is best known for Spike Spiegel, and David Hayter is best known as Snake on Metal Gear Solid, and he is the screenwriter to a few movies you might know, like X-Men, and he was the person who adapted Watchmen to movies as far as writing it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I do know those people then. That's kind of interesting. That's really interesting. Dude, let me ask you now. At the same Goodwill, did you happen to find a Laserdisc? Oh, well, you just said you can't watch it. You can't even watch these. God, that's
My
terrible.
brother has one, but we live about 120 miles apart.
Oh, that's a reasonable excuse for a road trip.
I'm sure you can find the first episode on eBay or something for like $3.
Oh, and also
Laserdisc, I doubt $3.
Yeah.
Like those can run. They're like collector's items now, because it's like a format that tried to come out and then didn't. Yeah. So now, like all the stuff, like it's kind of sad, because I think Laserdisc was supposed to be better quality than DVDs, because the discs were bigger, they could store more stuff, but it was bigger, it was less convenient. DVDs just were fucking. They were smaller, more compact. They were the way of the future.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it is expensive, then you probably have pretty expensive discs right there, so that's good anyway.
Yeah, although the only problem with selling them is the cases have severe water damage. So I'm not sure if the water damage seeped to the discs and if some of them work or not. So I collected it just to say I had it.
Wait, so how would water damage affect the discs?
I don't know. It's like there's like a lot of like maybe caked up dirt or something on it.
You're worried if you buy a Laserdisc and put this in it, the Laserdisc will explode. That's what you're saying?
Look, I've had a dirty DVD bust my DVD player, so I rented Lock, Stock...
Are you serious?
Yeah, I rented Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and apparently whoever rents this movie, like, just puts it on, black tar heroin while they're running it, and then sends it back, because I just put it in, and suddenly I could not watch anything. I mean, I just had to clean the lens, because the lens had gotten extremely dirty, but yeah.
All right.
Anyway, let's get on with the show.
Yeah, right. So I suppose I have to talk about a manga now. Okay. I think I've mentioned this already in the podcast. I'm extremely sleepy, so this is probably, I'm gonna butcher this explanation, but I've been reading Durarara, a manga, and I've been enjoying it. So Durarara, if you don't know, is about this boy Mikado who shows up in Ikebukuro,
or Ikebukuro, something like that.
Ikebukuro. You see, that's a wonderful thing about reading a manga of an anime thing and bring at least one anime person on. Although the anime person didn't even respond to that. It was the other manga person, so I don't even fucking know how to explain that.
Yeah, my fiance likes Durarara. I am indifferent to it.
It's funny you mention that, because one of the chapter naming things in Durarara is that the first 4 volumes, it just goes wah, and then second chapter, wah wah, and third chapter, wah wah wah. It just goes like that for 21 chapters.
Well then.
It's kind of amazing. But anyway, so Mikado shows up in Ikebukuro, and all types of shit happens, is basically the best way I can describe it. The wheels are set in motion for basically a war between different color gangs, and in the first 4 volumes, the Yagami Pharmaceutical Company who's basically holding Celti's head, and Celti is the Black Rider, who is a headless motorcycle riding Dullahan. That's what I was looking for. Dullahan. I did not prepare for this. I knew what word you were going for. Yeah. The worst thing is, I had notes the other week to talk about this, and I got distracted by another series that I needed to talk about, and now now I don't have those notes anymore. I don't know where they went. So now I'm trying to come up with them off the top of my head. I'm professional. I swear I am. And basically, it's all about... Funny thing, I've read these 4 volumes before, and I was rereading them again, and I never noticed this the first time I was reading through, and I don't know how I missed it, because it really was shoved in your face a lot. There is a strong theme of what love means to all these characters. A very strong central theme, and it works because, in a way, it shows just how twisted love can be, and yet how pure it can seem in their own eyes, and that's how a lot of it kind of works. It's how Izaya works. It's how Shizo comes to term with himself later in the series. It's how there's a stalker girl and a dude that's in love with Celti's head, and it's like their love is the most twisted and fucked up thing in the world, but it works for them. And it's like, so love is just love regardless of how it looks. But it's still really fucking creepy that the dude fell in love with a head. But, it's like, whatever, because, love is love, but it gets really weird. It really does. But it's also very interesting. Also just because it's probably the most action-packed series that isn't an action series. Like, just their different color gang wars, different factions showing up and leaving all the time. And in the first 4 volumes that I was talking about, there's, of course, the fight between the Invisible Dollars gangs and the Yagami Pharmaceutical Company. And that basically... the fight... There's not even really a fight. It lasts 2 seconds in the manga. But it's just the setup and prep work that takes, I think, 3 volumes to get to it is fascinating. Just seeing all these different factions moving about, trying to outwit each other. And I think that's definitely one of Durara's strongest points. And so that's why I like the series. And I'll probably talk about it again, because there are 2 other manga series, and another one coming out, because I fucking dug myself deep in this one.
It's interesting to hear you describe this. Like, I sort of noticed when I was watching it a long time ago, I noticed sort of different characters' feelings toward love and their interpretations of them, but I guess somehow I never considered that to be a theme throughout the whole show. Because one thing I remember specifically, you didn't bring this up, but the character Henri, I think her name was, and how she's, compared to the others, considers herself incapable of feeling love, and like the opposite of a lot of these characters in many ways. Or she thinks that love is not something she should have for various reasons I shouldn't go into.
Yeah. There's first, I just want to say one thing. There is a reason I didn't bring it up. It's because it's a strong focal point of the second arc of the manga, which is like it's a separate 3 manga thing, which is why I didn't bring it up, because that way if I bring this up next week, I could talk about it then. But you're right, and like there are also other types of loving relationships. Celti the Dullahan and her roommate Dr. Shirai, they enter a romantic relationship, which slight spoiler alert. I mean they start. I think it's insinuated they start doing hanky panky at the end of the 3rd series. So I don't even want to know what that kid's gonna look like. That kid's gonna be fucked up, man.
I'm trying not to picture that.
I was really hoping you guys would. I was hoping if I pushed it, I guess I should have pushed it a little harder. I should have. Just make you guys visualize that.
Then again, knowing
I mean, Durarara wants you to think about it. Don't you think it's worth thinking about it? Durarara. All right, that's it. I can't fucking say the title of Durarara anymore. So it's time to talk about Heed My Words, as we call it. Are you guys ready to talk about that instead of weird, creepy Doulahan children coming from Durarara?
Yes.
Yes, although I think the creepy talk is not ended yet because yeah.
Oh yeah, because we're about to talk about fucking amazing revenge story here. All right, so Bloody Daruma Swordsmanship, Heed My Words, is the tragic tale of Genosuke, a man born into the social class of buraku in feudal Japan, which this social class is looked down upon as filth. They are as almost just a separate being. And these are often, occupations tainted by death, such as executioners, undertakers, tanners. These are the people that are tainted this way, and so on and so forth through their generations. And Genosuke, of course, because of this, has seen, even before he starts practicing swordsmanship, he's seen death, he's seen humiliation, he's seen everything he knows and loves burned around him. And so this all translates into his swordsmanship style, which ends up being his downfall, as it causes him to almost explode with rage at even the nicest of opponents. And this leads him on a spiral as people find out who he is as a buraku, and leads him on a path of revenge to want to kill everyone in the school of swordsmanship that he has practiced. And this is a man that will not be stopped despite losing limbs and basically being destroyed as a person, and yet will still continue to hunt down revenge. Guys, I'm gonna be honest. I thought this sounded like a really good topic for this show. A nice little revenge story. It was a short and sweet thing. And I read it. The first time through. And I guess first we should talk about what exactly... Yeah, I'm not sure where we start with this one. I guess we'll start with Genosuke, because even, that's kind of the big thing about him, is that he's already seen, even before he goes on his path of revenge, even before that, he's already seen this kind of this devil, this demon, because anytime he picks up a sword, anytime he fights someone, he has to win. He has this irresistible urge to continue going, even when he's practically destroying himself only in sparring matches.
Yeah, he keeps getting knocked down by his opponent, beaten, bloody, and he keeps getting up and he's like, keep going. And they're like, stop, you're gonna hurt yourself. And then, the rage builds, and then eventually he wins, but he, does something brutal to the other opponent. I think one opponent, he takes out their eye, and everybody's like, you took out the
assistant instructor, I believe it was.
That's the word I was looking for. Words, I should say. But, and he's like, no, that was my fault. I should have been able to dodge a deflected blade, but because of it, nobody else wants to spar with him because they know he's just going to get angrier and angrier until he, brutalizes them. Not because of his, he's a terrible person, but because it's, he has that fire in his soul.
Yeah. And it's funny, too, because he's depicted, before his descent into revenge, he's depicted as basically a relatively nice guy, except for this one thing, except for whenever he's dueling someone with a sword, he... Every other time we see him, he seems like he fully understands what he did was wrong, and yet he just continues to do it. And of course, this is part of him being buraku. He's seen so much. He has this dream as well. This is kind of what makes his downfall so tragic. Is he has this dream. He wants to he wants to basically end the oppression of the buraku, because he doesn't want what happened to his parents. He doesn't want what happened. He even has a sister that they talk about how she's basically they say he's humiliated, I guess, quote unquote, and I don't think we want to go any further into detail than that. Just let your imagination do the work, which is, I think that's what the author intended.
Yeah, it seems pretty much like do not go further down this route. That seems to be what it was implying.
Yeah, I think the exact word is shamed, and that was it. There was no description. It just showed, and then it showed like an image of her like bloody corpse just thrown over hay barrels, and that was it. And that's as far as you wanted to go. But it also, I think it kind of insinuated that Genosuke like saw all this, like he saw everything that happened to his family, which they were basically brutally slaughtered during a revolt against the buraku, basically just trying to kill them all off. And in a sense, it's also talked about how he wants to get revenge even then. Like, that was his first real decision to go down a path of revenge. And then it was the Emperor of Japan at the time, I believe. And he dies I forget the reason why, but he dies, and there you go. His object of revenge is gone. And I think that's where a lot of this comes from. His desire to win is his almost stolen moment of glory of taking revenge for his lost family is just gone.
What I found most interesting about Genosuke, or none of us are sure how to pronounce his name. We're all just using our own pronunciations. But what I found interesting about him is that I was trying to figure out for some time exactly how much we're supposed to sympathize with him, because depending on where his character is in the story, he's either treated as a completely like tortured character or just this violent, complete lunatic who's just barely human anymore. I guess that's part of the definition of a tragedy, because the way you described him just now, like he knows what he's doing is wrong, but he can't help himself when he's in that situation with a sword. That almost sounds to me like the exact definition of a mental illness, and I think that's part of what I find kind of interesting in his respect. Though I guess it is just supposed to be a tragic character, I guess, and that's what they were going for. Though part of me,
it might be a bit of a stretch to say, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but in a way, when he holds a sword, and again, like I said, this is a stretch. It might be to him a form of like PTSD, because in his head, in his heart, he says he has this dream to end the oppression of the buraku. When he holds a sword, I think in a way it's manifesting like all the desires for revenge and hatred he had, just right there, like everything he wanted to do to cut down the people who ordered the execution of his family. But he has no target anymore, so it's just the poor sap in front of him, basically.
There's a page describing his sword. It's a red-black wood, and it's like, he describes it as the blood of his pain, or the blood from his pain, the proof of his pain, and...
Yeah.
I think they were just implying it's his blood, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got too. Like, it's implying that he's done this so many times, he's stained his sword like a blood red.
It could also be symbolic.
Oh, I know. I have no doubt that's symbolic. I have no doubt that means exactly what it's supposed to mean. That slowly but surely, as he trains his sword and as he continues to fight, he drowns himself more and more in his feelings of revenge. And and basically, I think he is supposed to be a very pitied character, because this is a man who I think did start out with a good intention at heart. He wanted to do something right, but a lot of it is his own fault in a way. Like, he sort of did, because he couldn't control his own desire for revenge and his own bloodlust, he ended up hurting his chance to really work out. I do remember he broke his arm the same time he broke the assistant instructor's eye, and that stopped him from really progressing further as a swordsman. Obviously he kept going pretty damn far to get his revenge, which we'll have to get to in a second. But he had a plan to become someone important to the shogun, so that he could bring up the matter directly to the highest authority. And this dream was almost kind of dashed when his arm got broken. Which, again, that's just another big obstacle put in his way, along with his social class, along with everything. And so, in a way, he kind of almost builds his own path to failure because of that. I think that's why you're supposed to pity him as he makes this descent into madness. And of course there's the big moment. There's the big breaking moment, which we actually, it's the first thing you see in the manga, is him confronting his master over his betrayal. And I guess I'm gonna spoil it because it's a little. This is a volume long if you want to take a look at it. I mean, it's not a long read at all. Like I think overall the manga, like, it can be a little text heavy. I never felt it was that long a read though.
When it got to the second chapter, it got a little heavy, text heavy. Like there were like massive text dumps in one page to another. The first part of it was fine, but
yeah, I found that kind of distracting because it would indeed switch between like massive amounts of text and just very little text at all. Like I'm usually a guy who prefers smaller amounts of text, but even I can like large amounts of text if it's not inconsistent.
With him essentially murdering his master, Ichidensai is his master, and then it goes back and tells his story why he did it, and I believe this is in the intro. He kills his master, and then what he does is he puts his master's head on his sword and attacks it to the wall, and then he writes in blood, "Heed my words, I will kill all of you."
Yeah, actually, I think he sticks the master's entire body to the wall, like by his head.
Yeah,
I think that's
by
what
his
happens.
head.
Yeah.
Like that just shows the kind of brutality we're talking about in this manga. So
It's yeah.
if that kind of thing bothers you, maybe you should stay away from this one.
Yeah, there's a lot of dismemberment by sword here.
And blood.
The reason, of course, he decided to kill his master, I think we're good to just kind of be a little spoiler heavy with this. The reason he killed his master is because his master found out his entire story. Because he cut down one of the senior pupils, basically in cold blood. And when he told his story to the master, he was like, "Okay, I get why you did this." And so the master took pity on him. He still kept him on as a student, still kept training him. And then there was a tournament to decide the next successor of the dojo, which he said he would allow Genosuke to compete in to become the next master. However, this was more a trick just to have him killed off during the tournament because no one would really respect the fact that he is a buraku. Even if he did obtain such a high ranking, no one would still respect him because of where he came from.
Yeah, there's also the stipulation that at the tournament, the Daisen's daughter would marry the Daisen's daughter, and then the Daisen comes in and it's like, you know this guy is filth, right? I'm not going to have my daughter marry filth. And so he has a conversation with Ichidensai, the dojo master, and they talk about how the dojo master is going to give him an honorable end, and Genosuke hears this, and then he gets into a rage because everybody betrayed him, and that's when his revenge starts.
And that's when, the mass killings start. And basically the endless rage of Genosuke. And this is when the manga goes from being this tragedy to almost being a really silly shonen action series. Like, I find it funny that you brought up Bobobo, Yerocha, because I feel like some of these fights, this would come out of Bobobo. Like, it's kind of, or at least like some kind of not very serious shonen action series, because as it goes along, more and more, Genosuke is continually mutilated more and more, and yet the series continues to come up with ways to why he can continue to push forward, why he can still kill people. So he gets both his legs severed, but he still has an arm, so he's still fighting with that. And then he gets both his arms severed, so he has nothing left there. So what he does is he goes into the mountains for 10 years, living off of whatever insects, grass, and scraps he can find along the way. He learns how to slither like a snake by grinding the flesh continuously off his chest and stomach to make it hard enough that he can slither on, and then snaps his sword in two and ties both ends to the nubs that were his arms. So his style of killing people is just to climb up really high, jump down, and stab into them.
You say Bobobo, but in all honesty, this seems like something that would happen in One Piece. Like the villain of One Piece, Strong World, is almost a very similar character. He lost his legs and replaced them with, I don't even remember what. I think it was swords. It's exactly that kind of thing.
It's kind of fun. Yeah, that's right. He could use a float power, so he just floated on those sword legs. That's true. Not to get completely off topic, but didn't he also have like a piece of steering wheel sticking out of his head that made him look like a rooster?
Yes, he did. I remember that.
That's wonderful. All right, back on topic, because we have a bad habit of that. We all do. It's everywhere. So it's honestly really weird. I get that this is supposed to be like, this is how much he wants revenge. He doesn't even care that he's become a person that can't even live in this time period anymore. He's become just this being of hate and rage. And yet, the visuals are so silly, because then we have people from his past, from Genosuke's past, show up, who have lost their arms, who can't fight as well as they could. But they've, like, developed, like, styles of using needles. One uses needles, and then one uses a sword mounted on a helmet.
Also a One Piece style power.
Yeah, that really is. Like, I kind of love it, too, because I gotta imagine he's, like, just fucking headbutting people to death. Like, and I feel like he doesn't need a sword nearly as long as what he uses to do that.
I'm imagining, like, one of those weird dance acts where the guy is swinging their head all different ways, like to music or something, but with a sword.
Yeah, there's, for both characters, which, by the way, I think I said there was literally the same scene twice. This is what I was talking about. There's a scene where, you know, someone pops up and says, I went to exile because Genosuke ruined my life as a swordsman, but I have come back for revenge. This is how I will kill him. Shows off their weird power. Now I will go fight him, and then they fight him. And, like, they do that with the needle guy. They do it once, and it's like, oh, he was really ineffective, just instantly dead. And then they do it with the sword helmet guy. Oh, by one weakness, a sword pointed directly up. and I just kind of spoiled how the manga ends. I apologize. But it does. It gets so silly considering just how tragic a tale this was. Like, I feel like this needed to be like 50 pages shorter. Like, he should have died while he was still in the hospital, while when he got both his legs cut off, and like he just like, he was kind of no more as a person.
Yeah.
But then this manga kept going and got really silly.
Got really goofy. It reminds me of like 1970s kung fu movies that were low budget, and you know, some of them are like, you know, low budget revenge movies, and then some of them go crazy. For a while, it's the first part where it's, you know, a low budget, but you know, it's kind of about something, and then it kicks into the second part. Then it gets crazy with people with snake hands.
Are we talking? Was there a character with snake hands in this? Because I missed the...
Maybe my mind.
What exactly is a snake hand? Snakes don't have hands.
Like snakes.
Well, when he said that, I saw, like, in place of a hand is a snake head.
I'm trying to remember
if that ever happened, it would only have been symbolic, because I don't remember a snake at any point.
Okay.
I think...
Well, no, there was a snake in this series. Like, he tried to eat a snake, and he saw how it slithered, so that's how he learned how to move around on his stomach.
Okay, I'm probably thinking of something else. Never mind.
Okay.
But yeah, it gets really comical in more ways than one, because I found like the way the story was like presented was also kind of silly. Like those two scenes you mentioned where like you said, there was basically the same scene twice. The way it's presented is, it's like, I'm going to go kill him, dud. Like, it doesn't even take 2 pages for the character to die.
Yeah, for how much a lot of these characters kind of talk themselves up, fight scenes can be tragically short in this series. Which, I mean, there are a lot of just instant death moments in this where Genosuke just kind of sneaks up on people and cuts them down pretty quickly. Like, he says, we see him say, like, a lot of the times when we see an extended version of what his assassination looks like, he says, draw your sword. But it doesn't even look like he lets a lot of these people draw their sword before he just goes on the attack. Like, I guess in a way he feels, oh, they're trained swordsmen, whatever. Or hell, he doesn't even freaking care, probably, because he just wants to kill these guys.
He's a master of the Kirby quick draw game.
He's a master of the curb stomp. That's what he is.
It sounds like that the scene in Mars Attacks where it's like, we come in peace, bang.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, kinda. This'll be an honorable duel. Draw your sword. Shink! Already lost an arm. Well, you weren't quick enough, man. You couldn't move fast enough.
The only way that would be even more comical is if he cut off their arm and then said, draw your sword. And then just waited.
I gotta admit, I kind of wish he had done that now. That would have been hilarious. Oh, and it would have been great, too, because technically he really only had one arm to work with anyway, because he broke his right, so he had to use his left.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have been, in his mind, he could have easily rationalized that as evening the playing field. But, we are running very long with this series, so let's, we still have one more thing to talk about before we do final thoughts, and that is the artwork. And like we said, this is 1962, so the artwork...
It's a little basic.
It's a time capsule. It's a time capsule is what I'd say.
It reminds me more of American-style comics than anything, like, in terms of manga I've read. Even, like, other samurai series often look more Japanese than this one does.
I think that makes a lot of sense because, well, okay, a lot of early manga was inspired by the big comic book boom in America because comic books in America, they rose to popularity because they were cheap, they were easy to pump out with, like, new printing presses. I mean, like it's like the cheapest form of entertainment you could have gotten that day. That's what made them so great. And a lot of that came over to Japan. And so that's what made a bigger rise in manga after World War II was how cheap and effective comics proved in the US. And so a lot of the creators of manga back then, a lot of their inspiration came from comic books and the art styles of American comics. So it really didn't develop its own style, I'd say, until like late 60s, early 70s, maybe even later than that.
Yeah, around the rise of Osamu Tezuka, was it? Or was it...
Yeah, I think even Osamu Tezuka... Osamu Tezuka, I think even a lot of his early work had a lot of that American comic inspiration in its artwork. It was
very inspired by Disney.
Yes, that's very true. Disney comic books. And I believe, like, it really didn't formulate into its own kind of style and something until a lot later in his career. So this is definitely a time capsule because this does look like artwork from a very old-fashioned American comic book, with of course a few differences here and there. Let me just take a look. Yeah, it does. I pulled up a page just to get a better idea of it. You know what? I do have something that I was just reminded of. The faces, I would swear to God, if you did not tell me the author of this work was Japanese, I would say that the faces were made to insult Japanese people.
Oh, yeah.
Did anyone else get that?
Yeah, a lot of them are cartoonish in almost the same way as 300 in some... Like I look at these and
I would almost say some of these faces...
exaggerated in way too many ways.
Yeah, I would almost say some of these faces are almost like a Japanese blackface. Like, that's how, like, over-exaggerated and weird a lot of these faces look. it was super weird to notice. And I mean, like, I looked it up. The guy who made this work is Japanese, born and raised. So I was like, I guess it was just kind of his way of drawing faces. But it was just like, it's like you said, it was so over exaggerated, so cartoony, so like, he did just look like a cartoons a lot of the time. It was crazy.
It's it helps with the, I wouldn't say helps, but it's accelerates the goofiness when it turns violent, because I remember when he kills his master, and the first person who comes by is this really goofy looking guy who looks like he could be played by Don Knotts or something. It's like, everybody, look at what happened. And he has, you know, the wide eyes and just like this off-balanced head.
He's just walking by carrying some tea, and like he looks in and goes, "Whoa!" It was like a giant reaction face, like straight. It was like straight out of a gag manga. So yeah, the artwork, I stand by what I say. It's a time capsule.
I think it did sort of work in some places, although I did find it sketchy, like compared to other places sometimes. So it did get almost too comical, like with a lot of the other stuff, where it seemed like if you could actually hear what the characters were saying, a lot of them would just be like screaming really, really loudly.
Yeah. I liked it during fight scenes, because I feel like the sketchy style worked then. Like, but then again, that was like so few and far between. Like, real fight scenes in this series really didn't happen that often, despite the fact it's about basically a dude going on a mass sword genocide. But I think we've covered all our bases, or at least all that we can remember to, with this manga. So I think it's time for our final thoughts. Yerocha, you're the guest here, so you can start us off with that.
Well, I'm trying to think if I would actually want to recommend this, because it's fairly short, and like it's also very different than a lot of what you find nowadays. Though it does depend a lot on your personal taste. Like, odds are, if you're looking for Rurouni Kenshin or something, this is not the place you should go. I should almost read more. There was another samurai manga I wanted to read recently. Was it called Lone Wolf and Cub or something? Or is that something else?
Yes.
I have not read that yet either. I need to, but I've heard it's amazing.
Yeah, like
Also, if I can interrupt you for 1 second about, you were saying like you wouldn't be sure someone would read it now. The truth is, there is a bit of history on this about how this was pulled from store shelves after a short time. Back in 1962-63 when it was released as a book. And the reason for that was, at the time, there was a buraku. I keep wanting to say Baraka after the Mortal Kombat character. I'm so fucking sorry.
It's okay.
Buraku, a freedom movement, who saw this manga and saw the main character depicted them in a very negative light. And so it was, in fact, the only image I can find to use as like the front, whenever I make the title card, I use the image of the first volume, or something equivalent for the title card. The only one I can find is the 2004 re-release, because apparently it's really hard. It's very rare to find the original 1962 or 1963.
It should also be noted the 2004 re-release was edited because it contained some slurs towards the Barakuman, and they edited those out and lightened the language for the 2004. It's like when people have problems with the language in Huck Finn and want it banned for that reason. So from the one I read, they said they tried to restore it as much as possible in the translation, but in the Japanese re-release, there were, either phrases taken out or lightened.
I can definitely see that, because, like, just the way it was translated here, they seem to be using the word filth exclusively, like, to describe the buraku, because I have to wonder if that was the part of the reason for that is that, like, there were other more specific words they could have used, but was unable to because it would have offended people.
There actually is an afterword for this manga, where it has let me just read a little bit of it for you. This manga was originally seen as derogate. Oh god, my amazing fucking English skills are
derogatory.
Being put to work here. Derogatory. Thank you. For the following 3 reasons. A portion of an explanation about buraku, which was excluded from this version and is considered lost, contained prejudice propaganda. 2. Since the buraku main character is depicted as being unable to choose any course of action but revenge, it was seen as counteracting the buraku freedom movement that was enacted at the time. And 3. The main character dies in the end and everyone else is shown as rejoicing over the death. It sends an unconscious message to the reader that all buraku are better off dead. In response to these 3 points of contention, the mangaka, Hirata Hiroshi, has this to say. At about point 2, since this is a period piece supposedly depicting a tragedy during an Edo area, in other words, an event in the past, it's bound to bring up problems with a freedom movement happening in the present. The freedom movement's stance on the manga should be seen as one opinion on the event, and nothing more. In other words, it shouldn't have had the power to remove the manga from the shelves. 3. He claims is a clear misunderstanding of the ending, which is really depicting the other samurai as even more inhumane than the monster they chase to death. Finally, 1, he states, is the only one contention out of the 3 that actually has ground. However, he notes that at the time when the manga was published, the 1960s, that the so-called prejudice explanation was something seen as a well-established fact by many people, and not necessarily considered to be discriminatory. I think this afterword brings a lot to light a lot about this manga.
Yeah, it sounds
like a lot about it.
It sounds like some of the explanations I've seen for like I've taken English courses in the past and like courses from around we've dealt with books from around the time of Shakespeare, and it sounds a lot like the explanations that those get, like in terms of Jewish people and a lot of that kind of thing. Like I think with Merchant of Venice that we were talking about, where there need to be explanations for why Jewish people are treated the way they are, even if they're because like they seem to be treated poorly by our standards, but by the standards of the time, they would have been seen as actually progressive in some cases.
That is very true. I was talking with my mother, who was born in the early 1950s. So she grew up after the time of Martin Luther King's "I Had a Dream" speech, and when the whole big civil rights thing was in full swing, and how like it all kind of didn't happen very quickly. How it really only happened once children grew up and realized that the way their parents were acting was pretty much not cool, just not the right way, and it was the children that ended up making a change. And the reason I bring that up is that pretty much all of this is always going to happen anytime you make a change to try and help a group of people, because there is a part that talks about how the buraku have started. Here we are. On the note on buraku, it says they were legally liberated in 1871 with the abolishment of the feudal caste system. However, this did not put a stop to social discrimination and the lower living standards. And I can understand that completely, because that's basically adults who have lived all their life discriminating against people aren't going to just suddenly say, I'm not gonna not hate these people. It's going to be the children and the children's children that are going to bring about that change. And so I just feel like that's a big part of what this manga is. I think I really like this manga, by the way.
Really?
I think I do. I think it is a time capsule of sorts. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a very interesting read. It's a very short, very interesting read. And like we've said, the artwork is kind of a time capsule in and of itself. But even the story is kind of a time capsule, not just of a time period hundreds of years in the past, but also of just 50 years in the past of this manga coming out, and it seems like everyone kind of jumped on it, and now that it was re-released, suddenly people are kind of, even now people are still kind of jumping at it. I mean, also, you could also say that the author is trying to defend his work as best he can, and it's very clear you can say that. But I truthfully like this. I think it can be a bit silly, but I still think the story of Genosuke is very tragic, and it does, and I think it would. I have not seen many depictions of buraku, but as for depicting a man who, from just being born, is left with so many limited choices in his life, of having nowhere else to go and seeing no other way that he can go, I think in just that sense, it's an amazing story. And I honestly would almost love to read more about buraku and see just how, you know, kind of over-exaggerated this manga is, because it's a manga. It's going to be over-exaggerated no matter how historical it says it is. And obviously, like we were just talking about with the artwork, and how the author claims how they're supposed to be more inhuman, that matches up with our comments on their faces, how they always look cartoony and stuff, because I do think, like, there's this one scene where someone finds his appeal to the shogun, and his face is just this very cartoonishly evil, like, face, like, I knew it! That Genosuke was filth all along!
Oh,
yeah,
the Grinch smile.
Like, do you...
I definitely agree. He did have the kind of character design where it's like, I'm going to die doing something really evil soon.
Yeah, that's the guy he cut down in cold blood, by the way. That led to him and his master, like, knowing the secret. So, yeah, I like this manga. I think it's very interesting, and I would recommend it. It's an enjoyable short read. Joe, you're the only one left.
Okay, then. Well, it was kind of interest to me because the Barakumen are attached to death. I would kind of be a Barakumen if I was born in Japan during, before they abolished the caste system, because my father's a mortician, so that kind of interested me in a weird way. And then I got to reading it, and it's I like the first half much more than I like the second half. The first half is like good mid-level melodrama tragedy covering time and a group of people, and it's a decent tragedy on why, because somebody being born can't fulfill their dreams or longings. You've seen it before a few times, but it's still pretty good. The second half I don't like so much because then it gets goofy and then it just gets too caught up in its, revenge stuff and, being bloody or being goofy or being whatever. I like it. Overall, I like it. It's just, I like the more serious stuff that's actually, dealing with this section of society than I do the second part. But, different tastes vary.
I feel like your enjoyment of the series is in many ways going to depend on like how much how much the reader is willing to accept. In many ways, just the fact that this is meant to take place in the 1600s and it is meant to be a different time than ours, and it can lead to weird things. Like for me, one of the scenes in the early, I like the first half as well, but one scene that kind of bothered me a bit was when Genosuke killed that one character, like you said, and his master was perfectly willing to forgive him afterwards, which is something that would never ever happen like in any time past that with any other profession. I think if that happened, the character would be like completely unforgivable at that point, just because that's their immediate reaction to something, and that's usually how it goes. But I could understand why the story was like that, but it was just kind of strange for me to see it play out that way. But if you can get past that, I think it is an interesting read, and yeah, I think I do recommend it.
I want to add a little extra to that. I would say also your enjoyment of this series is going to come from whether or not you will empathize with Genosuke, because even during the goofier parts, I still pitied the guy. Because he clearly didn't want to end up like this, but he just ended up getting swallowed. He was swallowed by a system that was born to chew him up and spit him out from the moment he popped out of the womb, and that's something I do pity. Even if he did turn into this horrible, unforgivable monster, it was just kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, like not, of course, of him, a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, a lot of self-fulfilling prophecies. His own for not being able to control his bloodlust and rage. A self-fulfilling prophecy of the system for just continuously exposing him to all these horrors, and terrible actions of the people around him. And it's... I do pity Genosuke.
Okay.
I really do. Alright, so I think we are done talking about Heed My Words, or as Yerocha likes to call it, Chidamaru. The way cuter title for what this technically is. So,
I was going to say it's Chidaruma, but I actually didn't call it that at any point.
Oh, what did I say?
You said Shidamaru, like the Naruto character.
No. Are you serious? I'm sorry.
It's okay, I didn't actually use that term.
Inuyasha character.
Alright, I think we're all tired now. So, thank you all for joining us once again. The weather seems to be clearing up. Joe, anything to plug?
Nothing. I have a review of Turn A Gundam coming out. Check that out on infiniterainyday.blogspot.com.
Awesome. That sounds nice. I will, because I don't know a single thing about Gundam, so I will require you to teach me. Yerocha, I know you've got something to plug, so why don't you go ahead and do your thing?
Yeah, I'm starting up a blog again. I used to be on a blog called Shades of Grey. I'm not sure if anyone here knows about that, but I know Walton.
How did we get an hour and 20 minutes into this Skype call and I never got you to sit down and explain why you have a blog named after a fucking porn?
I didn't know about that at the time, the Shades of Grey thing. I only found out when I started getting hits for 60 Shades of Grey.
That's not even the right fucking title!
I know, that's what was confusing. It's just because I think I had a chapter 60 I reviewed at some point. But...
Yeah.
Yeah,
Alright, I apologize for interrupting. Please continue.
But yeah, my current blog title is not one that should be mistaken for porn, hopefully. It's called Manga Forte. The link should be in the description. Technically, it's up... Like, as of this recording time, it's technically up right now, but I haven't put my first post out. It should be up at the time this video comes out, though. So, yeah, go...
It absolutely will. This video comes out on the 4th, so it definitely will.
Alright, as long as I don't get really lazy. But go over there, I've got some interesting... I'll have some interesting stuff. My first post will be about a 1,000-word essay on why the current villain of Bleach sucks so much.
That sounds like something we can all enjoy. Alright, thank you both for joining me. This was a ton of fun.
Yay, thanks for having me.
Say goodbye, everyone!
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.
I fucking hate both of you.